Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Happy New Year. It's 2026. Here we all are. First stream of the year. And important news for today is we have a new platform. So we're streaming live to not just LinkedIn and YouTube like usual, but also today, Facebook. So welcome if you're joining us on Facebook for the first time today. It's our first stream on our new Aardvark Facebook page. So welcome, everyone. So we're going to be talking about accessibility quick wins that you could literally implement today. If you are feeling especially motivated, you could do them during the stream with me. So if you feel like accessibility is too overwhelming, too difficult, too hard, I'm going to give you a really easy way to get started today. We're going to go over at least 5 and maybe 6 quick fixes that you could do on your site right now today to improve the accessibility. And I'm going to show you how to do those. I'm just talking for a minute to get to let everybody have time to come into the stream. Welcome. If you feel like it, you could leave a comment and let me know where you are. I am in Los Angeles. It is 75 degrees, beautiful blue sky, perfectly sunny. I have all the windows open. Hopefully that's not a problem. My neighbor was revving their motorcycle engine a little bit earlier, but hopefully they went out for their ride and they're gone and it shouldn't bother us. If I have to, I'll pause the stream and close the windows, but I think we should mostly be okay. Right now I just hear some birds out there. So you can't close the windows when it's 75 degrees in January. It's against the rules. You might get in trouble. So it's a beautiful day here today. So hopefully wherever you are, it's not too cold, not too snowy, or unless you like that, in which case I hope it's just what you like. I do have just water here today. Hi, Noemi from UK. Oh my gosh, so it's a little bit late in the evening for you then. Well, thank you for being here in your evening time. Eastern Kentucky, Jacob. Wow, okay. I've never actually been to Kentucky. Well, I've never been to London either. So, 2 places I've never been to. Is there anything especially good in those places that I should experience when I visit? I know I wanted to do at one point the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky. Seemed like a good time. All right, so I'm going to get started with just a few slides to kind of ground our conversation for today. And then we'll dive right into some fixes that I'll do live in front of you. So the fixes I'm going to do in HTML. This is very simple static HTML pages. So just HTML and CSS. And then for the ones that make sense, I will also show you how to do them in WordPress. I chose WordPress because it is 43% of the websites on the internet. So it seems like if you are not necessarily a developer, but you're managing content, there's a good chance that it's on a WordPress site. If you wanted to see how to fix some of these things on another platform, you can leave me a comment and I will look into making a future video or maybe live stream on fixing accessibility issues on those particular platforms. So it seems like the next behind WordPress is Shopify, but it's only 5% of the internet. So, it's only like a 1 in 20 chance that if you're managing content on a site that it's a Shopify site. All right, so we have Jenny from Peterborough, UK, who's coming to Anaheim for CSUN. Well, I hope that we still have nice weather when you come. We are having a particularly nice week. And it has been a little bit chilly and a little bit rainy, but hopefully the nice weather will hold for CSUN. And Jacob says I should try Kentucky Down Under to pet some baby kangaroos. It's not something I would expect to be in Kentucky, but that's good to know. And hi, Alan. Yes, you had very important business to attend to. giving cat treats. You don't want to get scratched or bit, so important to give out those cat treats on demand, of course. So we'll see if Oliver, my cat, joins us for the stream today. Right now, he's sleeping in the other room, but sometimes when he hears me talking, he gets jealous and comes over to check out what's going on. All right, so let me start stepping through just a handful of intro slides that I have for us today. So accessibility often feels overwhelming. It can just feel like, oh my gosh, I run a scan on my page and I've just got dozens or maybe hundreds or maybe even thousands of issues, and I have no idea how to get started. I don't know how to prioritize things. I can't figure out how to get started, and so I end up doing nothing. It also seems like it can be very expensive. So some of the fixes can get pretty complicated, and especially if you're trying to remediate a website or a web application that was built without accessibility in mind from the beginning. That's something that can feel kind of scary. And then it also feels like it's all or nothing, right? Like either my site passes or it doesn't. But I want to talk about quick fixes that you could literally do today, and as a way that you can get started. I want to emphasize progress over perfection. So you do not have to meet every single WCAG success criteria to make your site better than it is now. Every little fix that you make removes a barrier that's going to enable another person to get to some content on your site or to be able to use your application. So it's important to get started and to just figure out where you can do that and how you can participate in it. So I don't want you to feel like, oh, it's this huge thing that I just can't take on. If you just make a little bit of progress every month or every week, it's going to add up over time. That's going to compound over time. And it doesn't have to be super overwhelming or expensive to get started. All right, so how am I defining these quick fixes for today? Okay, so this is not a big WCAG deep dive. This is not how to get your site 100% compliant with WCAG. We're not going to do a redesign or anything like that. We're going to just focus on some quick wins. And that means they're things that take minutes to get done, not months. So you'll be able to go and do them today if you want to. If you're in the UK, it's already late in the evening, maybe do it tomorrow, but still you could do it tomorrow. It will really improve the user experience. So it will have an impact on users. We could apply the same thing across many different sites. So once you learn how to do one of these fixes, if you're managing 5 sites, you could apply this fix across all of those sites. They're not particular to any certain thing. And they help us to build momentum and to start moving our sites more toward accessibility and start incorporating accessibility into our process, right? So that is what I mean by quick wins. Okay, and the fixes for these, this is a duplicate of the slide. Okay, hold on. There we go. Now we're good. Now, so what you walk away with at the end of this session. So at the end of the hour, I expect that you'll all be able to go to a site that you manage, whether or not you're a developer, and apply some of these accessibility fixes, maybe all of them, right? So we're going to do at least 5, and we'll try to do 6. So I have a bonus one that we can get to if we have time. All right. I have live demos. This is being recorded. So if you want to refer back to it later, when you come back to do these fixes, you'll be able to do that. I'll show you how to validate that your fix actually worked, that you actually accomplished something. And then we'll talk about what do you do next after you implement one of these fixes. All right. So some high impact wins. So the big important question to ask yourself when you are looking for what are these quick wins that I could implement on my site would be, if I fix this, will someone immediately have an easier time using the site? So that's always the thing that you can use as a quick decision on whether or not, is this an accessibility quick win? Is this worth doing? And this same question applies. It doesn't matter what role you are, if you're a project manager, a designer, a developer, any of those roles, if you're the site owner, right? All of those are fine. It doesn't matter what tech stack you're using. If you have something built on React, if you have something built on WordPress or Drupal or Shopify, if you have just static HTML pages, it doesn't matter. Like, these fixes apply across all of those. Okay, so where do quick wins usually live? Where can we look on our site if we're looking for some accessibility quick wins? So first of all, content clarity. So anything that's going to help make the content more clear and more accessible for people. Forms and interactions. So that's one that can be kind of challenging to address if you're not a developer. We are going to talk about forms a little bit today because there's a few really simple, important fixes that you can make on forms. But anytime that there's something that users can interact with, that's usually a place that we can make an accessibility improvement. Navigation and structure. So how we're getting around our site, how the different pages are set up, how we navigate the structure within a page. Those are all good places to look for some quick wins. And then finally, some visual contrast and focus. So making sure that there is sufficient contrast on things and that the focus is always visible. So I want to be clear up front about what we're skipping today, like what we are not doing in this 1 hour session on accessibility quick wins is, of course, we're not doing full audits, because even just fully auditing one page, unless it was a very simple page, would take the whole hour of the live stream today. And, I have done live streams in the past where we've done accessibility testing on pages. I don't think I've done one where I actually did a full end-to-end audit on a page, but I'm open to that if anybody would be interested in seeing it. But that is not what we're working on today. We are also not going to dig into any ARIA, any complex ARIA, anything that might be very developer heavy or need a lot of explanation. We're focused on really simple, quick things for today. We're also not going to talk about any of the edge cases. We're going to focus on really mainstream that impact the most number of users, because we're trying to just get some momentum going on improving the accessibility on our websites. And then we're also not going to focus on perfection because I think that's the thing that holds people back the most often from being able to make progress on accessibility. We are just going to focus on making our site better than it was before. That's all that we can ask. So that's what we're going to do today. If you follow along with me and make even just one of these fixes, your site will be better than it was before, and you're building good momentum for the future. All right, so let's dig into the quick fixes. All right, so let me minimize my slides here and let me open up my code editor. So first I have my browser. There's my browser. That's the one I want to use with my samples and my code editor. Yes, there we go. Okay, so let's go over here to accessibility quick wins. Close that. Okay, so half of my screen, I have sample pages that are AI generated, because if there's one thing that AI generated code is good at, is making accessibility issues. So I purposefully asked it to implement these accessibility issues on purpose into these different pages. And then I have the code on the right-hand side of my screen, and I'll talk through what the fixes are that we're going to make to the different pages. So these are the fixes that we're going to take a look at. So we're going to look at alt text for images, and we're going to talk about when images need and don't need alt text and how to write proper alt text for images. We're going to talk about forms for a minute, and that part is going to be pretty developer focused. So if you don't know how to write code, maybe that's a good time to get a drink or follow along and maybe learn something new. We're going to talk about links and buttons and having descriptive text in those, and icon-only buttons. We're going to handle focus state. We're going to look at fixing heading structure. And we're also gonna, if we have time, the bonus number 6.1 is color contrast. So we're gonna take a look at that and get that fixed. All right. And the only tool I'm going to use today in my browser is a free browser add-on called Web Developer. So it looks like, and I don't have it visible right here, it looks like a little purple cog like this. And it opens up a menu with lots of different options on it. We're only going to use a couple of those. So if you just, and this add-on is available for all browsers. So whatever browser you're using, whether it's Chrome or Edge or Firefox or Safari, it's available for all of them, and it's free. So anybody can go grab this, and that's all that we're going to use today for any of the testing and then verifying our fixes after we're done. So that's all you need to get started. Very simple, very easy. And let's dive in to our first one, which is going to be our image accessibility demo. All right, so here we have a fake web page. Like I said, AI generated. It completely came up with TechCorp all on its own. It seems kind of cute. So I kept it. And we have 3 different images on this page. So we have first an image of a bunch of people sitting around a table working on laptops. Looks like they might all be wearing headphones. A couple people, we can't actually see their heads, so it's hard to tell. So we'll have to figure out what we're going to do with that one. And then this blue image here, I know that it doesn't have to be an image, but it is, because I needed a decorative image to have on the page. So that's our divider image. In the WordPress version, I actually found a fancier one, but that's our decorative image that's on the page. And then finally, again, I know this wouldn't necessarily have to be an image, but it is one. And we're going to talk about that one. And we have there a functional image, because we have 3 different sets of rules about how we write alt text for these 3 different kinds of images. Now, there is a 4th kind of image, which is complex images, which have a whole different set of rules about how we provide alternative text for them. And I can cover that in a future live stream. It wasn't a good fit for quick fixes for today. All right, so let's talk about the 3 different kinds of images. So the first image that we have here with the people sitting around on their laptops, that is an informational image. It is providing some information to us about, here we'll pretend that this is the team, right? This is the team of people who work at TechCorp, and we're catching up with them. We're figuring out some news from the company. Looks like they're having some kind of meeting. So maybe this is an article about the meeting that they're having. So this image is providing information to us. It's showing us who works there. It shows us that they all work on laptops. It's a little bit of a weird image in that you can't clearly see anyone's face. There's only one person, in fact, that you can see their face. A couple of people have their backs to the camera, and one person's head is kind of disturbingly cut off, but that's okay. At the very top of the, they're at the very top of the frame. This, we would want to have some kind of description of why is this image on the page and what information is it conveying. So it's important to note that the exact same image might have different alt text when it's used on different pages, because it might be used in different contexts. So for example, I might have a picture of a tabby cat taking a nap, and I would put one type of alt text if it was an article about sleep in cats, right? I might have one kind of alt text on that image, but if it was an article about breeds of cats, or cat coat colors or something like that, then I might have different alt text altogether, because I would be calling out a different aspect of the image, right? If I'm distinguishing this breed of cat from another breed of cat, I would say different things than if I was talking about the cat sleeping on an article about how often cats sleep, right? Which is a lot if you didn't know. So we want to think about, why is this image on the page? What information is it conveying? And then we want to make sure that our alt text contains that information for the people who can't see the image for whatever reason. It can also help for people who maybe have some issues. They can see the image, but they have issue processing visual information and would prefer to have that as text. So we have a few different reasons that we might want to have good alternative text on our image. And in this particular case, if I right-click on this and inspect the image, I see that it has an empty alt attribute. And it is an informational image, so it is providing some information. So I would want to go ahead and go in and find this in my text. So let's see where we have it here. Oh, I'm in the wrong file. Let's try getting in the right file. That'll probably help a lot. Okay. So here's issue number 1. Oh, look, the AI even flagged the little issues it put in there for me. Oh, that's so nice of them. Okay, so issue number 1 is an informational image that is missing meaningful alt text. This image conveys important data but has an empty alt. So here we would just want to add some descriptive text about that tells us why is this image on the page and what information is it conveying, right? So like let's say that this is the Q1 2026 planning meeting attended by all the managers of the company, right? So attended by all the managers. So that would give us the context of what this image is. If I had their names, right, maybe I would include, oh, it was these 5 people that were there. If it was relevant, I might include details about where they were, if, you know, depending on what we were talking about on the page. If we were talking about how they did a retreat in Hawaii, I would probably want to mention that, you know, if they were at the beach or something like that, that would be super relevant information to have. As it is, it just seems like they're at a table somewhere and it's not particularly interesting. Like I said, unless there was something about that location that was super interesting or relevant to the content, I don't think it's necessary to mention in the alternative text. Okay, so we fixed that one already. Next, we have this image here, which is a decorative image. And we can see, oh, there it is in my code, issue number 2, a decorative image that is missing the alt attribute entirely. So when we have a decorative image, which is an image that is on the page just to be a part of the design, so it is not conveying any kind of information and it's not doing any kind of function, we want to signal to assistive technology that this is a decorative image that you can just ignore. And the most common way to do that is to add an alt attribute. So I'm going to add that here, alt equals, and then just leave it equal to empty quote marks. So you don't want to have a space in there. You don't want to have anything else, just alt equals quote, quote, and we're done. So that is a signal to assistive technology. This is just a decorative image. You can just ignore this. You don't have to read it out. You don't have to tell somebody that this image is here. It is just there for decorative purposes. Another thing that you could do is you could give it a role of presentation or a role of none. So that's starting to get into a little bit of ARIA, but we could do that also. You could do both. You could do one or the other. Just the empty alt is plenty. And then finally, we have issue number 3, which is a functional image, which, like I said, this didn't necessarily have to be an image, but I needed an image for my demo. So here we are. And this is a functional image. So that's the kind we haven't really talked about yet. It's an image that actually does something, right? So this one you can see in the HTML is wrapped in a link tag, right? So I can click on this image and go somewhere else. And because I can do that, it is now a functional image. Well, we have a couple of issues here. So first, we have an image with no alt attribute and no alt text at all, which is a problem. But then the second problem that we have is that we have a link that doesn't have any accessible text. It doesn't tell us anything about what the link is for. And the easiest way to fix both of those problems is to just add an alt attribute on the image. Yes, there are other fixes that we could apply, but we're focused on quick fixes today. And in this case, I just want, oh, I love that it says contact us button. That's wonderful. That is a wonderful AI thing because of yes, of course, you would write the actual visible text on the button to be contact us button. So, um, yeah, so that's great. So we want the all attribute to match any visible text that we have on the button. So that's what we're going to do there. So now I'm going to dive over into WordPress, and I have a page in WordPress that also has some issues, and we're going to go ahead and fix that. And it didn't show up in my list of pages. So wait, where's my image demo? Heading structure sample. Oh, it might be this welcome. Oh no, it's this one here. Welcome to Tech Corp Solutions. Okay, so let's go ahead and edit this page. All right, so I have the same image here. So in WordPress, how you would fix an informational image missing alt text is you come into the editor, you click the image, and you can see that there's an alternative text field that is available now where I can add my alt text for the image. I'm just going to go back over to my code where I applied that fix already, and I'm just going to copy that same alt text and paste it into that box. So that's all I have to do in WordPress is add that alternative text. I do want to note in WordPress, there is a separate media library, and you can add default alternative text on images in the media library itself, and then you can customize that per page once you insert the image. So here is my alternative text for this image on this page. So here's where I found a better decorative image. So a divider, but it's all swirly and scrolly and nice looking. And WordPress takes care of having that empty alt attribute for me. So I don't have to actually do anything other than make sure that when I click on that image, that that alternative text box is empty. And that takes care of it being a decorative image. So WordPress actually doesn't let you, unless you've done something kind of funky in your theme, WordPress is actually not going to let you have an image that is missing its alt attribute altogether. It's either going to be there and be empty because you didn't fill something in, or it's going to have whatever value you filled in. And then finally, we have our functional image here at the bottom, which links out to something. And this one does just say contact us. So I'm going to go ahead and when I click that, I can fill in the alternative text box to say contact us. And now I've made those changes. All of my image alt text is fixed on this page, and I can click save. So we now know how to fix that issue in code, and we know how to fix that issue if we have a WordPress site. If you are fixing images on another platform, you should have a very similar type of interface that you can get to for adding alternative text. And there is also an interface for adding alternative text on most social media platforms. So if you are sharing images on social media, please take advantage of that to make sure that more people can enjoy the photos and images that you're posting, and take that opportunity to include a description of them. I know for sure it's available on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and Blue Sky has it for sure. And you could just check in the documentation for any other platforms, but that is available to you and should be available to you, frankly, in any kind of platform that you might be using. All right, so we've got our first quick fix underway. So now we know how to fix any issues that we might have with alternative text on our images. First, we just figure out if they're informational, decorative, or functional, and then we know what to do depending on what kind of image it is. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our next quick fix, which is form accessibility. So this one we do have to fix in code. I tried to figure out if there was a way I could do this in WordPress, but there's so, WordPress by itself doesn't let you build forms. You have to use a plugin, and there's so many different plugins that I wouldn't really know like which one might be the best one to choose. So if there is a particular form plugin that you're using, whether that's Gravity Forms or Formidable or Contact Form 7, if you want to see a video on how to make forms accessible in that platform, just let me know in the comments, and I will consider that for a future video or a future live stream. All right, so let's take a look at this form accessibility. And just like it did last time, I see that the AI has flagged for me the issues in comments in the code. So that's pretty nice of it. So, so we can see looking at the form in the browser that the very first field that we have in the form is an email address field, and it does not have a label. It only has a placeholder text, which is not correct. So some screen readers will read that out as the label for the input, but you really shouldn't rely on that behavior. It may not get announced to anyone, and so they may not know what that field is for at all. It's hard to figure out if it doesn't have a label. So the first thing that we want to do is go ahead and add a label tag. So I see my input in my code. I have an input with a type of email, an ID also of email, and then a placeholder equal to email address. The placeholder is just fine. It's fine to use a placeholder, but you just don't want to use it instead of a label. So let's go ahead and since we already have that ID, I know that I can just add a label tag. Okay. Okay. Email. Okay, so label with an attribute of 4 equals email, because that's the ID. And then I will just add email address as the text. Whoops, not address, it's email address as the text inside that label. So label 4 with a 4 attribute equal to email, the text email address inside the label tag, and then a closing label tag. And I ended up with some extra quote marks at the end for some reason. All right. And then we have our input of type email, ID email, and a placeholder equal to email address. So now that I'm going to have a label that that already says email address, the better use of my placeholder is to actually show an example of what an email address would look like, right? So like name@domain.com. Makes a better placeholder because it shows an example, and that's technically what the placeholder is intended for and not to be used as a label, right? So I'll update that just so people can see an example of what I'm looking for in that field. All right, and I have a comment that the input needs a name field, or it needs a name attribute rather, sorry. So it needs that for backend code, but it doesn't need that for any reason for accessibility. It needs that so that when this information gets passed to the backend, it will have a certain label on it. Right, the property name will be a certain thing, but it doesn't actually, that name attribute doesn't actually affect accessibility in any way. Okay, so we fixed one problem, that our form, we had a form field that was completely missing a label. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next field, which is a password field. Oh, here, I could fill in something for the name. Email, name equals email on the input. All right, so issue number 2. So if we look on our HTML page, we have a password field. It has the same problem. It's using a placeholder instead of a label. So one thing that I want to fix is that I want to use, I want to add a label in there so it has a proper label. And then I probably don't need a placeholder for password because I don't want to give anyone an example of a password, right? And then I have some instructions for that field too, which says it must be at least 8 characters with 1 number. And so I'll want to check and make sure that the instructions are programmatically associated with that form field so that they get read out when somebody comes along. So here I have my code. So I have an input with type equals password, ID equals password, and placeholder equals password. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is just remove that placeholder attribute because I don't think that it's helpful. And I think it could just be confusing for people. And then I'm going to go ahead and add my label tag. So a label tag with a 4 attribute, and 4 will be equal to password since that's the ID of my input. And then, oh, I need some text inside my label. An empty label isn't going to do anybody any good. All right. So our label 4, password, we have it in there. Now, we have our input here, which just has a type of password and an ID of password. And then we have a paragraph with a class of helper text and an ID of password help that gives us that text, that instruction that the password must be at least 8 characters with one number. And how I will programmatically associate that with the field is I will use this ID of password help. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And now I'm going to add an ARIA described by attribute onto my input itself and paste in that ID there. So now that input, when it receives focus, will know that that instruction is associated with that form field. And how it gets read out is different depending on which screen reader you're using and how your preferences are set for it. VoiceOver is really annoying and just says, and there's more information, press these keys to hear it, which is kind of frustrating, but it is accessible now for somebody who is using a screen reader. They can get that instruction and understand what kind of information has to be filled in that form and what the requirements are. They know it has to be at least 8 characters long and it has to include a number. All right. And then on our third field here, looking at our HTML page, we have a phone number, and it does have in the placeholder, it says phone number, parentheses, optional. And that is the only thing that is acting as a label on our form field. So we obviously want to fix that. So I think we can assume that the email address and password are both required fields and the phone number is an optional field. So I think it's fine to actually show optional rather than required on a field where most of the fields are required. I think that's a perfectly fine thing to do, but of course we want to do it correctly and not as a placeholder. So I'm going to do the same thing on this one. I'm going to go ahead and add a label tag, and I'm going to set it equal to the ID of the field, which is phone. And I'm going to go ahead and copy this text. Actually, I'm going to cut it and I'm going to paste it into my label. So now I have a label that says phone number, parentheses, optional. And I have an empty placeholder. So if you wanted to include an example of what a phone number would look like, you could definitely do that. So I'm just going to type 310-555-1212 to show people what format I'm looking for a phone number. But I think that's a US phone number, by the way. I know they're different in different areas of the world. But if we wanted to just give an example of what we're looking for there, you could also just do it with, asterisks. You could do a few of those with the hyphens in the right places, or, if there's a different format that you're looking for the phone number, you could give an example in the placeholder. But that's optional. You don't need to do that at all. Like, you could just leave that placeholder text out altogether and just have the field an input type tell with an ID of phone and a label correctly associated with it. Okay, and then I just realized that I'm working on a different copy of the files that we're actually looking at in the browser. So that was my mistake. So I'm not going to be able to refresh the browser and see these files. So let me see. How can I fix that as quickly as possible? I'm working on the wrong copy of the files. Let me copy this whole form accessibility demo. And then let me open up the right copy of the files. And I'll just paste in my changes in there. I think that's going to be the fastest way to go about it. Okay, let's see here. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Okay. All right, we need all out of all of that. Okay, give me 1 second here, and I will get this open in the right. Okay, let's open this one in Visual Studio Code. Yes, I trust the authors of this. And, oh, no, that wasn't the right folder. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, this is the right folder. All right, there we go. Yes, I trust myself. And I'm working on form accessibility. Okay. All right, let me save that in there. Very high tech solution. Okay, now I can refresh my browser and we can see the changes that I've been working so hard on throughout this whole live stream. Okay. Um, all right. So here we go. Now we have form fields with proper labels. And one quick way, if you want to not look in the code to see if a label is correctly associated with the form field, is if you just click on the label, it should focus the form field. So if you are able to use a mouse, that is a very quick and easy way to make sure that labels are correctly associated with their form fields. Just click on the label and see if the form field gets focus. It should. So all of ours get highlighted, and now we have this instruction text is correctly associated with a password. And I was going to show, let me go back to the image accessibility demo. I don't have the alt text that I added, but I did want to show using the web developer toolbar over here. So this is the version of the page without the alt text added. So I can go to the images tab inside the web developer add-on, and you can see that I can outline images with empty alt attributes. I can outline images without alt attributes. Now it is a very subtle outline. So there is like a 1 pixel red border around images without all attributes that came up around the decorative image that we have on the page, and then also on the functional image that we have on the page. And if I say images with empty all attributes, if you are very eagle-eyed, you can pick out that there is now a 1 pixel red border added around that image. So this maybe this isn't the best page to kind of show this example on, because if we had lighter color images, I think that outline would stand out a lot more. But I think that's kind of a fault in this browser add-on, that it's not making those more obvious. But this will help you to figure out, like, do I have images with empty all attributes? So then I can make sure that they're all decorative images. And then where do I have images that don't have all attributes at all? And where do I maybe need to take a look and get those fixed? So that is how we can use the developer bar for that one. And then let's go back to our form accessibility demo. And this is going to be a surprise to me. I actually haven't looked at what we can do with forms in this plugin. Okay, so we can clear out the form. We can convert the form. So there's nothing about highlighting form fields without labels or anything like that, unfortunately. So we still have to do that testing ourselves manually. But one thing is we can see that there's a visual label on the field. We can see that the instructions are here. We can inspect this field to make sure that aria described by is there and that it refers to the correct ID. So that's how we can confirm that we have this form now working. All right. So that is our form accessibility quick win. Let's go ahead and take a look at links and buttons. So I think the first thing that we'll talk about is the difference between a link and a button, because this is something that gets done incorrectly a lot. And I think especially in single page apps built with things like React and Vue, this tends to get done incorrectly a lot of the time. So if I'm going to click it or activate it, right, however I'm going to interact with it, I'm going to interact with it and it's going to take me somewhere else, whether that is a full new page, a full new HTML page, a new URL, a different place on the current page that I'm on, or if we're talking about a single page app, it's going to load, a new page view, a new component, a new path, right, a new route. If it's going to do something like that, then it should be a link. Links take you somewhere else. If it does anything else, it should be a button. So if it toggles an accordion open and closed, if it opens a modal dialog, if it prints, right, a print button that I would just send something to my printer, all of those should be a button tag. So the first thing to get right is, should it be a link or a button? And very confusingly, that has nothing to do with what it looks like, because of course, here I have a read more link. And what is that going to do? It's going to take me to go to read that article somewhere else on the site. It is a link. It looks like a button and it's very confusing. Styling links to look like buttons is very much a trend on the web right now. And so, yes, if I were talking about that, I would definitely say the read more button. And I think most people would say, oh, yeah, that button. It is a link, though. It is an A tag if we view it, and it is acting as a link. It is taking us off somewhere else to go look at something. So, yes, William in the chat says links go places, buttons do things. Exactly. It is that simple. So, you just have to figure out, is it taking me somewhere or is it doing something else? So, the first thing to know is, should it be a link or should it be a button? Once we have that figured out, now we need to make sure that we have usable text in our links and buttons so that we understand what they are. This is a very, very common problem on the internet, and I have two very common examples here. First, I have a link that just says click here, and then I have another link. I know it looks like a button. We already talked about it. I have another link that just says read more. And let's talk about first how we'll fix that in code, and then I have a similar page. I have a similar page in WordPress that we can go in and make similar fixes to. All right, so first we have welcome to our blog, and let me get the link button accessibility one open. And yes, there's my my comment telling me issue number 1, vague link text. Yes, click here. So if you're not aware, users of assistive technology have the ability to pull out a list of all of the links and all of the buttons, for that matter, all of the interactive elements on a page, and hear them read out as just a list. If all of your links on your page say click here, when they do that, they're just going to hear click here, click here, click here, and have absolutely no context what those links are doing, where they're going. Also, it's kind of annoying if I'm a sighted user and I'm just scanning down the page looking for something, and all I see is every link just says click here. It's also kind of annoying and not very helpful. And I can tell you exactly why this is so popular and why we see this online so much is because in the very, very early days of the web, like the late 1990s and maybe even into the early 2000s, people weren't used to documents being interactive. And so it was a best practice at that time to have links say click here to help people realize that they could actually interact with it, because that wasn't obvious. I know that's wild to think about now, especially if you are young and you didn't use the internet at the very beginning, but it was a whole new thing. It was completely revolutionary. Nobody had ever seen anything like it before. And people didn't always know how to use it. So it was a best practice, we're going on 30 years ago now, to make your links say click here so that people knew that they could click here and accomplish something. But of course, we all know that now, and we don't need that extra instruction. So I have a sentence here that says, to learn more about our subscription plans and premium content, click here. And the way that I'm going to fix that is I'm going to change this sentence to say, learn more about our subscription plans and premium content. I'm going to take out this comma that's at the end of that phrase, and I'm going to move my opening link tag to be right before that phrase. Okay. So now I have an opening link tag. Oh, it pasted in a closing link tag for me. Thank you. All right. Learn more about our subscription plans and premium content, closing link tag. I'm going to get rid of this click here text and this period, all this hanging out down here. So let me save that and we'll refresh the browser. And now we have a link that tells us what this button does. We could make this even more short. We could actually make the link just the subscription plans. So if I wanted to do that, I could say subscription plans and put the link there, and it keeps wanting to give me that closing tag for me. So I could do that if I think that link is a little bit too long, because it is a little bit long. So now just subscription plans and premium content. So if I hear that read out of context, subscription plans and premium content, I know exactly what that is. I know where that's going. I know what to expect when I get there. So anytime that you feel tempted to say for this, for that, right, click here, just figure out how you can reword that sentence to just link to what you're talking about with text that actually tells people what the link is and where it goes. All right. So, so William remembers an Adobe Flash problem. Yeah, I remember a lot of Adobe Flash problems too, William. So, yeah. Remember like Cipher when we all thought it was great to replace text with Flash to use the font we wanted? Okay. Anyway, all right. So next we have this read more link, which we see everywhere across the internet. Just read more, right? And again, like the problem that we have is if I'm just listening to this page, right? I'm just having the screen reader read this page and I read getting started and I hear the first part of the thing and then it says read more. In that case, I know what that link is for. But if I am just browsing by link, I have absolutely no idea where that's taking me, right? I just hear read more, read more, read more, and if you have 10 or 20 articles where you're saying read more or learn more, that's another one that happens, right? There's no way to tell them apart. Now, if you are a sighted user, visually you can see like here's this heading and then I see read more. So visually I can guess pretty easily by just scanning the page. But if I am just listening to those links, right, it's not at all obvious. So there are lots of different ways that we could fix this. And I think the way that I'm going to go with today, because we are focused on quick fixes, is I'm going to add screen reader only text inside of the button that's going to say the title of the article. There are lots of other things that you could do. There's lots of other approaches to fixing this, and which one you choose is going to depend on your particular situation. So I'm just trying to keep this as quick and easy as possible for today. Definitely, you could do some research and figure out like, is this a way that I want to do it? Is that going to work for me? So how I'm going to do this is a span, and I'm going to give it SR only class inside my button after read only. And then I'm going to get the title of this article and say about, and then paste in the title of that article. So I don't think I actually have this CSS class written in this document, but it's pretty easy to add a class that will visually hide that text, but make it still available for screen readers. You cannot just say display none, just so you know. You cannot say display none. You cannot say visibility hidden. There's a different set of code that you have to do. And in fact, probably if we just do a Google search for it, I can give you an example of what it should look like. Oh, the AI is going to try to help me. Okay. So here's a pretty good example, and this is what I usually see online, is an SR only class that, of course, not when it's focused and not when it's active, that sets a clip to a zero box, basically, a clip path in setting it by 50%, a height of only 1 pixels, an overflow of hidden, a position of absolute, a white space of no wrap to prevent weird line breaks from happening, and then making screen readers read it in a strange way, and then a width of 1 pixel. So it's all kind of some wacky CSS. It looks a little bit weird. But you will see a class similar to this used in a lot of different CSS libraries and in a lot of different sites across the web. So sometimes it's called SR only. There's another common name for it that's escaping me right now, but you'll see this CSS class written quite a lot around the web. And the purpose of it is to hide something visually while making it available to a screen reader. So in a case like we have on our page, where sighted users are getting already this context of being able to see that there's this heading right before this read more button. So I understand what that read more button is doing. This is going to give me a way to add that context onto the button itself. So that I can say, read more about getting started with cloud computing, so that I can now distinguish those buttons from one another. As I said, this is not the only solution to this problem. There are lots of different ways that you could solve this problem. And you can do some research online to figure out other ways of doing it. Now let's pop into our WordPress site and go to pages. And I think oh yeah, it was this welcome to our blog page. So I set this up. Let's go ahead and edit it. So here I have the exact same content. So I'm just going to do the exact same thing here that I did on the other site, is that I'm just going to make the link text, right? Subscription plans and premium content. So let me go ahead and, well, that just links off to the sample page. So I'll just go ahead and break that link. I'll edit this sentence, right? So it just says, learn more about our, and then I will link this section to our sample page. All right, so that's how I would fix that problem in WordPress, right? I'm just going to edit the text and change what's linked, and then I can do a similar thing for the buttons that are here. These would be a little bit more tricky to add screen reader text to in a WordPress editor. It's not impossible, but again, you would have to know HTML to be able to do it. So you may need to get some help from a developer if you have issues like this on your site, although typically this read more button isn't actually something that you're adding in content like this. Typically, that's something that's going to be in your WordPress theme and is going to need a developer to go in and modify the theme if you have this problem in your theme anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and skip over that part for the non-developers, but you should be able to go in and make those changes anywhere that you need to. And then the final thing that we have is we do have some actual buttons down here at the bottom, some actual button tag, and we have just icons inside of those. So now in this case, I see that the AI gave me emojis, which is probably better than nothing because at least the emojis would get read out. But if I had an SVG tag in there or an image tag in there, for example, I would want to make sure that it had an alt attribute on it. Well, if it was an image tag, I'd want to make sure it had an alt attribute. If it was an SVG tag directly inside the button, then I would want to make sure the SVG had a title to make sure that that was going to get read out to users so that my button would then have active text inside of it. All right, so that is our fix for button and link text. Let's go ahead and dive into our next one, which is focus state. And here I've got a page, and if I try to tab through the page, it's got nothing. Like I can't see where I am. I can't tell what's focused unless I get to one of those form fields, and then I can kind of see that it's got the flashing cursor in there, right? So we have some serious problems with focus on this page. And here it is right here. So we are hiding the focus outline on the nav item. Here it is, outline of none. So we see this in CSS files a lot because designers will say, well, I don't like that these links are navigation gets this dotted outline around it when somebody clicks on it. So we'll just fix that by adding this outline of none without realizing that that's actually something that people rely on, right? And that we don't want to have this outline of none in here. So if you don't want it to show up when users are clicking on things and you only want it to show up when users are using the keyboard, you can do that. It's escaping me right now what the correct CSS property is for that, but do I have another problem? I don't seem to be able to get focus on there. What did I can see? Let me try refresh. Oh, here, let me try hard refreshing. Okay, aim. Well, that's funny. This page is just acting really crazy. All right, let's see if we fix some of these other issues, if that helps. All right. All the issues have focus removed. Okay, let's get rid of this outline then. We'll just get rid of that again. What was issue 3? Where was issue 2? Let's keep looking through here. So definitely look around for outline none, no visible focus state. There's no visual indication of focus. Yes. Issue 3A, a link with no visible focus state. We already fixed that. Issue number 2, incorrect tab index. Oh, that's why it's acting so crazy. Okay. All right. So definitely look out for this. Look out for tab index being hidden in your code. So there are a few legitimate reasons that you may need to add tab index in your code. However, you should only ever have to use 0 or -1 as your values. And you would use -1 if it's something interactive that you're doing with JavaScript, that you're going to move focus to it with JavaScript. If it's something that the user should be able to tab to, then you would use the 0. You shouldn't ever use any other values. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this tab index because it's making the page act really crazy. And we'll get this one off as well. All right, and there's another one. Yes, this explains so much about why I was having so much trouble using this page. And there's another one. And another one. Wow, the AI really went all out on that tab index, didn't it? All right. And a button with no visible focus. We've already fixed that. And a link with no visible focus state. Okay, let me save this now. And let's refresh in our browser. Oh, so much better. Okay. I can go to home, about, services, contact in the navigation. So that's great. I can go to our company history. I can go to the form fields in the expected order. I can go to subscribe and cancel as expected and view dashboard and get support. Now, these are, of course, just the browser default styles. Some people are very opinionated that you shouldn't mess with these and you should just use the browser default focus styles. I do find them kind of inadequate sometimes, if I'm being honest. Like, for example, on this subscribe button, it's a blue outline on a blue button and it's not super obvious. So I do think it is worth styling those. So I see that Alan suggested hot pink as our style, which would definitely stand out on our page. You do want to make sure that your style has sufficient contrast with the background of your page and with the elements that are being highlighted. So it should be at least a 3-to-1 contrast ratio. So let's go ahead and I think we could go over here. And I think I probably want to do it at the bottom. We could just do this. We'll add a star focus and we'll take Alan's suggestion here. Outline 1 pixels solid. Actually, I'm going to make it wider than that. 2 pixels solid hot pink. Although I see Alan said thin instead of used a keyword instead of a value. Okay, save that and refresh. And now we get a hot pink. Hot pink, it stands out. Definitely contrasts with the rest of the page, and I can see it around the blue button. We would need to double check to make sure that the pink against the white background, I think, is definitely sufficient contrast. But we would also need to check the pink against the blue because they're touching. So one way to get around that, actually, if you don't want to mess with that at all, is to add an offset, because then our outline won't touch the button. So let me go ahead and save that and just kind of show you what that looks like now. Oops, wait, it didn't work. Did I do, is it outline offset? Oh, yes, outline offset. Okay. Sorry, I don't write a lot of code much these days anymore. All right, there we go. And now we see that that ring is kind of bumped out. And now I don't have to worry about the contrast with the button itself. I only have to worry about the contrast with the background. So using that outline offset, gives me a nice way of fixing that problem. As with the forms, this is a code only fix, so I can't show you how to fix this one in a WordPress site, but you saw that it was just a couple lines of CSS. Gave me a lot of different options, and then I can style this focus. If I don't want to use the browser default focus, I can style it however I want. I can also style it differently on different elements, if that makes sense. Be very careful with that. You don't want to get carried away and have, a different outline style on every single element on the page. It's going to be very confusing and off-putting for users, but you can get a little bit creative with it. All right, so let's head into our heading structure, and I know we're a little bit over time, so we won't get to the bonus one. I'll record a separate video showing you how to deal with color contrast, both in code and in WordPress, and I'll put that up on the YouTube channel and share it on social media. So let's go ahead and tackle our heading structure page here. And I have this exact same code in WordPress, so I can show you very quickly how to fix the same thing in WordPress. So I am going to use that web developer add-on. And here I'm going to go to the information tab because it has this great feature called view document outline document. I don't even know what that is. Okay, view document outline. And when I click it, it's going to open a new tab in my browser that asks me to donate to the developer who made the tool, but that's okay. You could do that or not. And it gives me this very nice outline of my document. And so I can see I have an H1 at the top that says Tech Corp Documentation Center. But then my next heading on the page is this Getting Started Guides is an H3. So I skipped the H2. So I need to go back in and make this Getting Started in H2. If I use, if a content person was doing this page and they used the H3 because they liked the look of it better, that can all be modified in CSS, right? I could go in and style the H2 to look more like what the H3 does right now so that we don't have to use the wrong heading level just to get a certain look. The headings can look any way that we want. What's important is that we're using the correct ones. And then we can see that we have the quick start tutorial, a little box under getting started guides, a quick start tutorial, and an installation guide. And those again went to an H5. Instead, they should actually be H3s, right? Because this getting started guide should be an H2, and these two should be H3s then nested under that one. So anywhere that it is missing, it does give me the tag. It shows in yellow instead of green, and it has this text after it that says missing heading. So it makes it really easy to pull out any issues. Of course, another issue that I've got is I've got multiple H1s on the page. So I can pop over here into the code really quickly, heading structure, but like this is very straightforward to fix, right? I'm literally just going to change the numbers on these. So from an H3 to an H2, and that's all I need to do is go through this document and correct the heading levels on all of those. And then similarly in WordPress, I'm going to go to the heading structure demo, edit the page. And this is the block editor in WordPress. When I click this heading, I get this toolbar that pops up and I see that this is an H3. I just have to click that, change it to an H2. And again, if you don't like the way the H2 looks, you can restyle it with CSS to look a different way. And then here we have our quick start tutorial. This should now be an H3. So that's all there is to it. In WordPress, in the block editor, it's very easy. You just click on the headings and you can make them a different level and get this document outline so that all of your headings are green and everything is nested correctly and as expected. So that gets done incorrectly a lot on the internet. Probably there is somewhere on your site where it's done incorrectly. I can guarantee you on my aardvarkaccessibility.com website, there is at least one heading that is out of order or out of place or incorrect. I work on the accessibility of that site all the time, but also our content editors are always working on it and making new problems for me to solve. So there you have it, 5 super quick wins for accessibility that you could implement today. Maybe you already did it while we were here on the live stream together. Maybe you already went and fixed some of these issues. If you didn't, you could go do it right now. You could do it tomorrow morning, and start making the accessibility of your website better. So I'm Natalie MacLeese. I'm founder of Aardvark, an accessibility testing platform. I do a live stream every other Wednesday afternoon. I don't know the topic for the next one yet, but I will announce it on LinkedIn, on Blue Sky, and on Facebook. So if you want to follow on any of those platforms and find out when the next one is, and if you have any suggestions for topics or anything that you'd like to see, you can leave a comment or send a message. I'm always happy to have those suggestions. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure, such a great way to bring in the new year, having all of you here and working on accessibility and making the web more accessible, removing barriers, and making the web a better place for everyone. Thank you so much. Happy New Year to you. And I hope your website is more accessible by this time tomorrow. Thank you.